Hello, this is Lucy Lee, NELF team member based out of Harvard Forest. Today I'm going to demonstrate how to analyze and graph recent trends data from the NELF Explorer using a Google Sheets spreadsheet that we've made just for NELF users. The data in NELF Explorer and the accompanying spreadsheets can be used by conservation professionals, land managers, policymakers, educators, and anyone who works with land use in some fashion to better understand current land use conditions and the implications of continuing with business as usual. By the end of this video, you will know how to retrieve land use acreages from the NELF Explorer, enter them into a custom spreadsheet, understand what additional calculations and graphs are automatically generated for you, and have some ideas about how you can use these numbers and charts. To access the spreadsheet directly, I can type bit.ly/NELFstats2 into a web browser. I suggest using Google Chrome for this, and I'll explain why later. But this address brings you to the spreadsheet, and immediately you can see lots of instructions, but since you're watching this video, you don't need to read those, you can just follow along. I only have access to view this document, so I need to make an editable copy for myself. I'll do that by going to File and make a copy and save it to my Google Drive or whatever folder I want. I'm going to press OK, and my editable copy will appear. If you don't have a free Google account, the written instructions explain how to create one. So we will enter our land use acres on the statistics sheet. And what we're going to do is we're going to enter land use acres from 2 time periods of recent trends. We'll enter the approximately current conditions, 2010 acres in these pink cells, and land use acres from a future year of recent trends in these blue cells. To get those data, I need to open the NELF Explorer, so I will do that now in a new window. I can access the NELF Explorer at newenglandlandscapes.org, and I'll skip right to the maps. I'm just going to arrange my windows so I can see everything at once. And when I skip to the maps, recent trends is already one of the scenarios that loads in the Explorer. So I can go right to the Explore Areas button at the top, choose the type of area I'm interested in. I'm going to choose state, and then I'll choose Connecticut because that's where I was born and raised. The land use acres are in this land uses over time section in the recent trends chart. And we have land use acres at every decade from 2010 to 2060, but you'll notice that the acres only appear when my mouse is hovered over the chart. When I move my mouse away from the chart, the acres disappear. One workaround for this that only works in Chrome, which is why I suggest using that web browser for this, is to, while you're hovering over the acres, right-click with your mouse. And that will freeze that little pop-up there so you can see it while you're entering your acres. Let us know if you use this feature through the feedback form or by commenting on this video, or if you would benefit from an automated export of these data from the NELF Explorer. So I will go ahead now and enter the land use acres. The table is set up so that the land uses are in the same order as they appear in the chart. So you can just go right down the list. Don't even need to think about it. Just enter the numbers as you see them. And we're done with our first half of the data that we need. Now I'm just going to repeat that process with a future year's acres. I'm going to choose 2060, but you could choose any decade that you want. And then I will repeat that same process of adding all the acres to the table. All right. And with that, we have all of the data we need, and all of the other tables in the spreadsheet have also populated for us. So let's check these out one by one. From the NELF land use acres that we entered in Table 1, Table 2 calculates some totals. So it calculates the total forested acres and the total developed acres, as well as the total area, which is used to calculate percentages. You may notice a 1 or 2 acre difference between the total area in each time period, and that's okay. It's nothing to worry about. It's essentially just a rounding error that is a result of the NELF land use maps being made up of square pixels that are covering an area that isn't a perfectly square shape. So again, it's nothing to be concerned about. It's just a rounding error. Table 3 contains the proportion of land in different land use types, so you're looking at lots of percentages. The table automatically calculates the percent of land that is forested or that is developed now and in the future. And it also shows the breakdown of different development or forest types within whatever development or forest is present. So for example, in Connecticut, we can use this table to say that Connecticut is about 60% forested, and about 1/4 of those forests are protected, while about 3/4 remain unprotected. By 2060, under a continuation of recent trends, Connecticut's forested area could drop from 60 to 54%, while the developed area could increase from 23 to 30%. The next tables do some of those change over time calculations for you. Table 4 shows the acreage changes. And in this case, you can see that Connecticut could lose over 200,000 acres of forest and over 2,600 acres of farmland by 2060 with a continuation of recent trends. Since it's hard for some of us to visualize or fully grasp what an area of 200,000 or even 2,600 acres looks like, I've provided a conversion table to more familiar units such as football and baseball fields. So for example, 203,000 acres of forest loss in Connecticut is equivalent to over 150,000 football fields. Converting big abstract numbers into these more intuitive units like football fields can make numbers more memorable, and it's a great way to make your message resonate more with your audience. And finally, the last table shows percentage change in forested and developed acres. Here we see that Connecticut could lose 11% of its existing forests. Now let's use all of the tables to determine the story of land use change in Connecticut if recent trends continue. Previously, from Table 3, we noted that Connecticut could drop from 60 to 54% forested. That's a change in 6% of Connecticut's total area. But as a percent of the total forest in Connecticut, that's an 11% loss in forested acres. So Connecticut could lose 11% of its existing forests, an area larger than 150,000 football fields by 2060 if sprawling development continues. It's also important to remember time when interpreting these numbers. I used 2060 as my future decade, so my numbers reflect change over 50 years of recent trends. Is developing 150,000 football fields worth of forest and farmland in 2 generations a sustainable trajectory? Tell us what you think in the comments. And we can visualize some of these numbers on the charts sheet. There are 3 kinds of charts. 2 of them are pie charts showing the same information in slightly different ways. They both show the current land use and the future land use, but one set of pie charts shows forest as either protected or unprotected and development as either low or high density, whereas the other pie chart just shows one group of forest and one group of development. There is also a bar chart that shows the change in forested and developed acres within your area. There are instructions on how to edit one of these charts so you can customize it to your liking, and there are also instructions for how to save these charts so you can put them in your reports or in presentations. To see an example of how all of these numbers and charts can work together, check out the example sheet. If you're not sure how to use some of the statistics, this example might help you understand what the numbers actually mean, because the numbers used in the narratives are highlighted in the same color as they appear in the tables, so you can get a sense of how you might use some of these statistics to create a story. And while this example is from the perspective of someone applying for funds to purchase land, these data could be used by policymakers, educators, and anyone who works with land use in some fashion to better understand the current land use conditions and the implications of a business as usual future. So this concludes our 3rd video. Watch the first video on our channel for a quick introduction to NELF Explorer, and stay tuned for additional how-to videos.